You stare into the void. How long have you been here? What is this place? Why is everything about it so punishing and cruel? Suddenly, the air around you freezes, and a grotesque drone begins to gurgle from your speakers. And within that wash of noise, you can hear something. Someone crying? The edges of your screen crackle and morph, and as they do, some gigantic tentacled abomination pulls itself into frame and begins lurching towards you. Your mind spirals as the deeper mysteries of the void unleash themselves upon you. What is this creature? Why is the reality around it erasing? And what exactly are you playing? In other words, what is Void Stranger?
Hello. I am here to answer those questions, but also to say, fuck this game, fuck its magic wand swapping bullshit, fuck its infinite, endless floors, fuck its obtuse Google Doc requiring storytelling, and most of all, fuck these statues. Oh, don't you worry, we'll get to these. Fuck Void Stranger. It's also, one of the best games I've ever played, and I love it.
Void Stranger released in September of 2023 from developer System Erasure. What at first seems like a novel take on a niche genre gradually spirals out into an abyss. Void Stranger is the kind of game you emerge gasping from, desperate to talk to other people about and share these strange things you've encountered there, trading theories about what this world is and how it works. But the problem for a lot of people will be just getting to that point. Void Stranger can be obtuse and impenetrable and cruel, and with just over 2,000 Steam reviews, the community behind this game is tiny. And worse, unlike System Erasure's previous game Zero Ranger, an immaculately designed shmup which boasts an overwhelmingly positive rating on Steam, Void Stranger holds a meager, very positive rating, despite being beloved by a niche fanbase. And the reason for that can be found in a number of negative reviews, many of which read like this. If you like unforgivable puzzle games where a single mistake means replaying 5 hours worth of content or getting a bad ending, this might be for you. If you like a game that doesn't introduce any of its mechanics to you but still punishes you for not understanding them, such as forcing you to replay the entire game, this game might be for you. Because Void Stranger is a game far too sadistic in its need to ensure you have unreasonable challenges, to ever let you get the upper hand, yet alone have fun.
I think he meant to write, let alone. Despite the wanker-esque vocal delivery I have inflicted on this review, I don't actually think anything about it is that wrong. Void Stranger is a game full of mystery that refuses to hold your hand, instead leaving you stranded at the supermarket and forcing you to find your own way home. Dad? That leaves us with a problem. How much of this game do I reveal to you to make you give a shit? Well, I've really tried to make this video in a way that I think even if you watch every second of it, you're still going to want to check out System Erasure's game. But for the more spoiler-sensitive gamer, I have also divided this video into 4 floors, designed for you to get off at the one that stops corresponding to you. Please take special note of floor 4. That's right, I know that's how some of you watch my videos.
But first, hello viewer. You can tell this is serious because there's no music playing. A year ago, I made a video essay called The Bizarre World of Fake Video Games, and I really loved making that video. But you can imagine my shock when the publisher of Vermis, HoloPress, reached out to me and asked if I wanted to create an entire book about fake video games. A year later, That is exactly what we did. A high quality hardcover book filled with reviews, previews, and retrospectives on games that never existed. I scoured the internet looking for the most insane and beautiful fake video games I could find, and working with the artists who created them, as well as our graphic designer Marco, who is just one of the most inhumanly talented people I've ever met, I am so proud of what we made, and you can pre-order it today. The book is the first in a new HoloPress series called the UDWFG Essays, and will be available in 2 versions, a regular edition and a special collector's edition, which will include an A4 print signed by me, as well as Plastaboo, the creator of Vermis, who by some miracle we got to do the cover for this book. And as an added bonus for both versions, we'll be including a special holographic sticker sheet for the first 1,000 pre-orders. The book is scheduled to release at the end of October, and I'll actually be attending the Luca Comics and Games Festival to celebrate its launch. Shipments will be taking place in late November, but pre-orders are open today for a very limited time. Link is in the description. I hope it's obvious at this point, but I don't sell shit on this channel that I don't really believe in, and I am so proud of this book and everyone who worked on it, and I hope you enjoy it too. Okay, thank you. Upon booting up Void Stranger, you'll be asked to input your brand. What does this mean? Shut up! Don't worry about it! That's none of your business. You're shown a cutscene of a woman crossing a vast desert with a determined look on her face, before she stops at a strange, cubular abyss. This is the Void. After she dives in, you take control of the woman, and if you've ever played a top-down Legend of Zelda game, the 4-directional controls will feel familiar, even cozy. There's nothing of note in this first room besides this, strange 6x6 engraving, which, shut up, don't worry about it, that's none of your business. You proceed down the stairs and are met with a large statuesque, statue. I need to stop writing these at night. Wearing a necklace, in front of which lies a chest, and at the other end of the room, a stairs, which you can now safely take as your goal. However, this time, a chasm separates you and it. With no way to cross it, your only option is to go for the chest, which triggers a cutscene showing that you have acquired a strange rod, and that something is wrong. Back in control now, and indeed, something does feel wrong. Whereas a moment ago, you were able to move freely, now pressing any direction snaps you to the corresponding tile. And it feels weird, but more troubling is you still have no way to cross the gap. And so, with all the grace of an idiot dog trying to start Angry Birds on an iPhone, you paw at the controls until... oh. You just hit the action button, and when you did, one of the tiles disappeared. And if you hit it again, you will place the tile back down. You have acquired the ability to pick up and put down a single tile. Using your newfound ability, you build a little bridge to cross the chasm. You have just solved Void Stranger's first puzzle, and in doing so, discovered what kind of game this is. Void Stranger is a game about swapping tiles.
There is undoubtedly a portion of you right now bellowing, "Eyepatch Wolf, I ain't here for no block pushing simulator. I'm here to play video games, not video chains." And I get it. With the sole exception of Hideki Kamiya's Goof Troop, I have zero interest in the Sokoban or Warehouse Keeper subgenre. I, like you, am a red-blooded gamer. I like my beers cold, my skies a-bloom, my guns a-shooting, and if someone's gonna speak language in a video game, by God, it had better be American. However, what you don't know at this point is how little you know. Whatever assumptions you have about this game, burn them! Because there is an abyss of joy and madness that lies beyond. And that insanity has actually already started in this very puzzle. In other words, if you're concerned that I went over that original puzzle in unnecessary, even perverse detail, I got some bad news for you.
What you need to understand when you enter this first puzzle is that you are a tiny dumb baby. You do not know what this game is, its genre, or mechanics, but over the course of the 20-ish seconds it might take someone to solve it, you now come to understand the central mechanic of the entire game. But what's interesting is how it gets you there. After you get the rod, nothing about how to use it is explained, and that lack of information traps you in this moment of slight anxiety, because under your current understanding of what this game is, there is no path forward, and so the solution has to lie outside that understanding. And so you flail, you experiment, you try things, leading to the discovery that you can pick up tiles and then the satisfaction of using that knowledge to build a bridge. And it's simple, but it feels awesome. But imagine how different this puzzle would feel if instead the game just displayed tutorial text telling you what to do. Even though mechanically we're performing the exact same actions, pressing the same buttons, the difference is what's happening inside us, because now that anxiety, that discovery, that satisfaction of putting it all together, we don't feel any of that because we haven't solved anything. All we've really done is what the game told us. We are still a tiny weak baby, just a baby who follows orders. And we all know who follows orders, right? But by not doing this, we are given no choice but to make those connections ourselves. We had to learn, we had to grow. No longer a tiny weak baby, but a big strong adult. So yeah, this is a game about swapping tiles, but it's really about being placed in scenarios where there is no obvious answer, meaning you have to reach beyond what you currently understand the game to be and towards realizations that transform your understanding of this world and how you move through it. This simple puzzle being the tiniest, most condensed version of that idea. But trust me, you ain't seen nothing yet. Now, a little word from our sponsor, me. Ah, the frog. Noble, elegant, wise, the thinking man's dog. The new Eyepatch Wolves Frog Tea from guest artist Speederoo. Available now from eyepatchwolves.com. It might not feel like it yet, but what's happened here is you have started to build a rule set for what Void Stranger's world is and how to navigate it. And from here, each floor is like adding another page to that rule set through discoveries that sometimes seem minor, like the fact that boulders can be pushed around the map, or that most floors have an optional treasure chest that always contains a locust for some reason, but others feel more significant. Take Floor 11. Floor 11 is unusual. Upon entering it, you'll notice it contains something you've never seen before, an enemy, and specifically a leech. But strangely, because of how the floor is laid out, divided into two separate corridors, the leech can't reach you, and you can't reach it. This is not where the strangeness ends. Take a step forward, and so too does the leech. Stay still, and so too does the leech. Keep moving and the enemy will move every time you do, traveling from left to right and turning around once it hits the wall. And I want you to ask yourself, what do you think is being communicated to the player here? Well, believe it or not, two things. One is the movement pattern of the leech enemy, something that we can experience safely and without risk of punishment due to the floor's layout. So that when we continue down to the next floor and are tasked with navigating our way around two leech enemies, despite the increased danger, we already have all the knowledge we need to do that because we know how the leech moves from the previous floor. However, the second piece of knowledge we can acquire on floor 11 is far more significant, and something that's going to affect every step forward down the void from here. The fact that time only moves forward when you do. Every step you take in Void Stranger takes time 1 unit forward, meaning it's only when you move that enemies will, and this is big. Because we have no way to destroy most enemies, understanding not just an enemy's movement pattern, but the fact that we control when they move and thus can endlessly plan a route around them, this becomes our greatest weapon against the creatures of the void. And that is all a massive amount of information to be imparted in the maybe 12 seconds it takes to complete floor 11. This is one of the reasons Void Stranger is so difficult to put down. It's like you're constantly being fed a stream of information about this world and how it works. Each little fragment of knowledge being a slight increase in your capacity to navigate the void, and it is addictive. It's like leveling up, but the stat increasing is your brain. The result feels nearly like a conversation between you and the game, like this unspoken stream of information back and forth as the problems you face on each floor grow gradually more complex. The game sometimes taking two mechanically simple enemies and combining them for a much greater challenge, before later taking those same enemies and using them as threads in these massive tapestries of cause and effect that you will break your brain trying to solve. But you can do it, not only because you have infinite time to analyze these puzzles, but because the game has shown you each individual piece and how they work. Meaning the real challenge is your capacity not just to hear that information, but understand it. Once you realize how the game is constantly communicating with you and how every little part of it seems to carry meaning and purpose, you start to question everything. What exactly are those square engravings at the beginning of each zone? Why does the game seem to occasionally skip a numbered floor? Why do I have only 7 hit points when each monster hits for 999 damage? What are those smiling statues, and what are those four-eyed statues, and why do I get such an awful feeling from them? And who is this large snake lady? I know what some of you want me to do, and I'm not doing it. In fact, I don't even know what it is. Before long, you'll find yourself wondering about everything in Void Stranger, and as you do, the larger mysteries of the void creep tantalizingly into focus. Like, what exactly even is the void, and who are you playing as? Answers to these questions will not come easy, but over your first hour with the game, one of two things will happen. And the first is, you will run out of locusts. Anytime you fall into the void or are touched by an enemy, the room will reset and your locust count will be reduced by 1. And when that count reaches 0, you effectively game over, triggering a cutscene with a little spherical person who tells you you are dead and now lost in the void forever. But you're given two options. Either give up, which sends you back to the start of the game, or continue. If you choose to continue, you're offered a fruit of the void and told by eating it, you can become part of this realm. Choosing to eat the fruit brings you back to the room you died in, but now your HP count is replaced by a single word: void. And what's more, despite the fact that you can still collect locusts, falling or being hit by an enemy no longer costs you one, meaning you are now functionally immortal and free to explore the void without penalty. I will not at present explain the implications of any of this, but I encourage you to make your own assumptions, and later we shall test those assumptions. The death cutscene is going to be most people's first glimpse into Void Stranger's story, but the second comes when the player hits the first tree room. A tree room occurs every 28 floors, and they are unusual. Approach the tree and you'll be given the option to rest, and if you do so, your game shuts down, booting you back to your desktop. That's unusual, right?
Hello, John. You're quite good at turning me on.
Like, that's unusual, right? Stranger still, boot the game back up and you'll find yourself in what looks like an old castle. A group of guards cowering on the floor. Controls have now reverted back to the free directional movement they were at the start of the game, and if you enter the inner chamber, you'll have to throw open the curtains before approaching the bed and... Wait, what? There's turn-based combat in this game? You face down a nightmarish creature called the Princess's Wrath as it hurls insults at you, while you choose when to defend and when to launch your own insults in return. It's not a complex system, but it is tense and you can lose. And while it serves as a shock to what you thought this game was, Its real appeal is in what it tells you about these characters. After defeating or being defeated by this creature, it will actually be revealed to be a small princess. This is Princess Lily, and you are her lady in waiting, Grey. You can tell from the cowering guards outside the room that the princess is a lot, but Grey is the only one who can deal with this nightmare child and withstand her verbal lashings, even able to convince this tiny abomination to do normal people things like bathe and not attack other humans. The switch up in format to a turn-based battle shows there's friction between the two, but the conversation that follows shows something else. Warmth. Grey's been away for some unknown reason, and despite the princess's verbal tirade, she seems very happy to have Grey back, and even suggests that the two should run away together. Grey too clearly feels a lot for the princess, but acknowledges that regardless of whatever she may want personally, they both have a greater responsibility to the kingdom. It's compelling, and from here, every 28 floors you'll hit another tree room and be given another fragment of Lily and Grey's story. As you journey even further down the void, these cutscenes become your motivation, a testament not only to how well Void Stranger's story is told, but also how well it's presented. Void Stranger is an oddly beautiful game, and I feel like if you're just staring at a screenshot of it, that's not going to be immediately obvious. Void Stranger looks like a Game Boy game, and everything from its desaturated color palette to its hyper-limited pixel count makes it feel that way. But I think this is the only way a game like Void Stranger could exist. I took a look at some of the programs used to create this game and was surprised to see how simple they often were, like sound effects created through a free randomized online synthesizer with each little parameter adjustable. In fact, every program used was either free or nearly free, and I think that's awesome because, like a thumbprint pressed into a clay figure, you can feel the marks of its creators. Void Stranger's look, as well as the programs used to make it, reveal what Void Stranger is. A personal game made by a tiny team. Just 2 people, and with, I'm guessing, intensely limited resources. And yet, who still found a way to shape their world through pixels and monochrome. And not to be too wankery here, but I find that alone kind of intensely beautiful. Beyond that though, the visuals themselves show so much skill and passion. The character portraits feel alive, expressive, and emotional, giving clear windows into what their characters are feeling at any given moment in the story. Each scene loaded with little aesthetic touches that create a sense of place and atmosphere, like light spilling into a dark room as you fling open the drapes, or the gentle bounce and swaying curtains of a traveling carriage. And I feel like the older I get, the less I'm affected by accurate light ray simulation or advanced particle effects, but show me a scene of a little pixel person staring out a window into darkness as perfectly square snowflakes drift gently in the foreground, and something in my brain just says, a person made this, a person somewhere who is trying to communicate something to me, and just that hits. Void Stranger's soundtrack feels the exact same way. This collection of crunchy, compressed chip music scrounged together from randomized samples and synthesizers, but assembled with a personality and vision that results in some genuine-ass bangers that can keep even the most frustrating floors alive and exciting, but also underscore the game's most somber story moments with melodies of real drama and pathos, all pulsing with the same bespoke, handcrafted personal feel as the visuals. The combination of both the visuals and the sound meld into this utterly unique atmosphere, resulting in some intensely impactful scenes, like a section where Grey teaches Lily to dance, which once again transforms the format of Void Stranger into becoming a rhythm game, as the two sway in each other's arms, shadows encroaching on either side. And it's such a gorgeous moment, alive with an atmosphere and identity unique to Void Stranger, but tragic because of its place in the larger story. As a princess, Lily is constantly pursued by suitors, who she categorically and violently rejects, which is of great concern to both Grey and the Kingdom. However, this begins to change when she meets Johann, who is definitely a good guy and absolutely not about to pull a Griffith. Johann is different. He's capable, charming, and handsome, and soon Lily finds herself falling for him, and the two are betrothed. The dancing scene with Grey coming in preparation for Lily's wedding to Johann, and it stands as this stark moment between just Grey and Lily, when the two have never been happier, but also know that soon this time will end and everything will change. The fantasy of running away together will be cut off forever. A fate that grows ever crueler when we discover that Johann does not actually care about Lily, that he sees his marriage to her as a means to take control of the kingdom. And when Grey discovers this and exposes Johann, he threatens to kill Grey unless Lily marries him. And heartbroken, Lily agrees. And then we don't actually know. All we do know is that something occurs between this point and the start of the game where we met Grey, but we can infer from these cutscenes that this has something to do with Lily. She is the person Grey is braving the void for. Void Stranger's story is great, but one of my favorite things about it is how it contextualizes the difficulty of this game. Void Stranger is hard, and while I think pretty much anyone's going to be able to make it to the bottom of the void, I also think a lot of people won't. And that's not because I think those people lack intelligence or skill, but two other qualities. And the first is perspective. People won't understand what Void Stranger is when first approaching the game, and that's a problem I'm hoping this video you're watching right now can solve. But the second is just patience. I think if you can solve the average Sudoku puzzle, you can solve 99% of the puzzles in Void Stranger. But sometimes that means staying with a puzzle long enough to see beyond your preconceptions of what you thought this game was and where its limits are, and into what the puzzle is actually asking you to do. Which brings me to this floor. The puzzle here involves a mimic enemy, a creature that copies your vertical movement while mirroring your horizontal. Because of this and how the mimic is positioned, the right part of the screen is inaccessible to you. The solution being to step on this switch to open this staircase. The only problem being that you can't actually do that. Because the position of the switch doesn't mirror the position of the stairs, it means there's no way to have both you on the stairs and the mimic on the switch. Instead, one of you will just plummet to your death. You can't move the switch because you have no way of getting to it, and you can't move the stairs because you can't move the stairs, making this puzzle functionally impossible. I've been playing Void Stranger for a while at this point, and something here felt off. I'd gotten pretty good at transforming floors around a staircase and building a path to it, this one unalterable part of every floor. But something about that felt like it just didn't apply here, like I was missing something, and that's when it hit me. No. If I could move the stairs, I surely would have already. Oh god. That's the solution. You could always move the stairs.
I think a lot of people are going to stumble into the fact that you can move the stairs way before this, but for me, I had just never needed to, and so I never tried, resulting in this moment, which was even more bamboozling than the time I attempted to read Brandon Sanderson's Mistborn, but accidentally read Regina Abel's Mistwalker, which, trust me, is a very different book.
Dark vapor tendrils wrapped around me. The Mistwalker's dark, featureless face rose out of my body. Cast away your fears, my jade. I will give you only joy and pleasure.
I just thought popular fantasy had gotten really open-minded. And it felt that way because the puzzle here wasn't asking me to unscramble a tile set, but to realize that I had assumed there was a limit where there was none. And now the removal of that perceived limit, i.e. the knowledge that I could in fact move the stairs, was kind of mind-blowing because it retroactively changed how I viewed every floor before and after this point. You constantly encounter puzzles like this, floors that ask you to question the rule set you've built up over the entire game and rethink everything you thought was possible. And while it's exciting and satisfying, it's also kind of grueling.
I looked into the biology of what is happening in your brain in periods of mental fatigue, and to criminally oversimplify, it's your brain slowing down due to a buildup of excess chemical byproduct. And I don't know if I've ever felt that mental fatigue as acutely as long sessions with Void Stranger. Not just because the puzzles are hard, but because of how they're constantly asking you to do mental backflips as you reframe your perspective of what is possible in them. And I think this is the actual mechanical reason Void Stranger shuts itself down when you rest at the tree rooms, because it's the game telling you to let those cognitive juices replenish and come back with a fresh perspective. But what we can take from that is that the grueling mental fatigue is an intended part of this experience, and this is where we tie back to our story. It's occasionally alluded that the Void is some kind of trial, a place designed to test people's determination. And Void Stranger's puzzles working the way they do, you feel that strain. You can feel the mental struggle of solving floor after floor, and your own resolve to beat the game tested. And don't get me wrong, the puzzles are enjoyable, they are meticulously designed and addictive, but they are tiring. As you descend further down the Void to floor 50, floor 100, floor 150, you start to feel a kind of unease. How deep does this go? What floor does the Void end? It does end, right? And it creates a kind of anxiety, a despair felt by both Gray and the player as they both struggle towards a goal they may never be able to reach. And that's a despair palpable in the other human characters you'll encounter. Like flies trapped in some horrifying time-traveling spiderweb, people get caught in the Void, and from a variety of different time periods and realities. Some, like you, have a specific purpose in coming here, but most just seem lost, with no idea of how they got here, how much time has passed since they did, nor how to escape. Some seeming trapped here so long that any trace of humanity has seeped out of them, they now just being these grotesque husks of despair. There's one encounter in particular that really stuck with me, and it's with a character called the Bride, who is not just here because she looks like Casca in a wedding dress. I have a healthy relationship with media, damn it! Your interaction with the Bride doesn't stand out all that much at first. In fact, it's entirely missable if you choose to go straight for the floor stairs and not solve her optional puzzle. But even if you do speak to her, it just results in her becoming angry at you for revealing her hiding spot. And that's how my first 5 or 6 times through this game went. Then, one day on stream, I lingered in this room a few moments longer, and something strange happened. The music stopped, and the Bride's sprite changed. It looks like she's crying. Speak to her and she's too upset to talk to you, but wait a little longer and she calms down just enough to tell you that today was meant to be her wedding day. How hard her and her husband worked to afford a ceremony and how long they'd spent on the invitations. But when the time finally came and she saw him standing there, she just couldn't do it. And she ran away. Now, feeling lost and with no idea as to what the rest of her life even is, she finds herself trapped in the Void. The Bride asking you, "Is this my punishment?" Unable to find the words to comfort her, you remain silent. She begs you, "Please don't leave me here. Please. I don't want to die." And that's it. That's the last interaction you can have with the Bride. It is a gut punch of a moment, so specific and cruel, but something I've felt in one other game. Towards the end of the original Silent Hill, there's an interaction with Lisa Garland. Lisa has spent the story wondering why she isn't affected by the same mutation that's taken everyone else in the town. But as it turns out, she has been affected, and you watch in horror as blood trickles down her face and she begins to come apart, all while begging you not even to be saved, but just to stay with her. She doesn't want to be alone. It's horrifying, but the part that has always stayed with me is you can't help her. There's no secret side quest or hidden item. She is just damned, and all you can do is walk away. That's a palpable, specific despair, and the exact feeling I get from the bride. In most video games, we, the player, are the correcting force, the thing that makes everything right. But in this moment, that's taken away from us. There's nothing we can do but walk away from this terrified, desperate person. And it fills the void with this hopelessness. You can't help her. You can't save her. She is just another soul lost in the void. Just like you. That despair mounts as you descend floor after floor, puzzle after puzzle, memory after memory, and so by floor 200, you really start questioning, will this ever end? You thought Grey was different from the other lost souls you've encountered here because she came here willingly. She has a purpose. She is determined. But is she different? Are you different? Or are you just like all the rest, lost? Is Grey destined to become just another withered husk of the void? And it's as those questions really start to set in that it occurs. You're making your way through the deeper floors of the void, and the song that's playing, the one that you are hearing right now, sounds like all music in Void Stranger. Lo-fi chiptunes that feel like they're being generated off a Game Boy's sound chip. But listen to what happens here.
There's a safety locker inside of me, out of your reach, and I hold the key.
A woman's voice cuts through the soundscape, and it's startling. You spent hours listening to the Void Stranger's music at this point, a symphony of low-tech chiptunes that perfectly match its visuals, but now that voice shatters that preconception, and it's shocking. The song itself is so sad and beautiful, this aching ballad of holding on to hope as every other part of you falls away, and just as you're steadying yourself from this moment, the game does something it's never done before. Mid-puzzle, the screen flashes to black, and when it comes back, not only are you in a different room with a different puzzle, but you've jumped forward 60 floors. And before you can even begin to understand what just happened, the screen cuts to black again, and now you've jumped forward nearly 200 floors. But wait, something is wrong here. The stairs are completely blocked off, meaning there is no way to finish this puzzle. We cut to black again, and wait, what floor are we even on anymore? And again we cut, and this puzzle doesn't even have stairs. These floors make no sense. Room after room, you plummet. Floors that have no solution. Floors where the only possible outcome is death. Puzzles where you're forced to shut off your own exit, floors where bizarrely positioned walls cut you off from any hope of moving forward, and you watch as all those rules and all that logic that Void Stranger had so meticulously built up in you over the entire game fall apart, as the very graphics that represent this world begin to break apart and the song echoes, distorts, and corrupts. Floor after floor, no solution, no meaning, no purpose, until eventually it's just you and an infinite void of nothing. You're shown a strange symbol. You are told that the envious one has poisoned your mind. You go down one more floor and find a stairs in front of a four-eyed idol. You enter it and the text appears, only a simple memory will remain. You awaken back at the beginning of the game. Congrats on beating Void Stranger's tutorial! You are now back at the beginning of the game with no clear path, and I would like to ask you, the viewer, what do you think is the way forward? For me, the answer seemed obvious. I needed to descend all 224 floors without becoming voided, which meant hitting as many optional treasure chests as I could, grabbing the locust from them, read extra lives, and keeping my locust count higher than my death count to avoid becoming voided. And that felt possible. After 224 floors, I had gotten a lot better at manipulating Void Stranger's mechanics. Solutions that I had missed before were obvious now, and knowledge like the movable stairs or how this tile configuration lets you reach just about any spot on the map blew a lot of these floors wide open. To me, I now understood most of what Void Stranger was and would soon hit its true ending. I have never been so wrong in my fucking life, and I've been wrong about many things. For as much momentum as I was blasting through Void Stranger's early floors with, by the time I reached the mid 150s, I'd find myself trapped in anxiety-riddled scenarios where, with a dwindling locust count, a single wrong move meant crashing back to the beginning of the game, which invariably happened. I made half a dozen attempts at doing this, only to be met with failure every time, and it was disheartening. It sucked losing hours of progress again and again, and rather than feeling like I was understanding Void Stranger more, it felt like the game was only becoming more alien and inscrutable. Floors I'd been through 5 or 6 times would suddenly have strange creatures in them. I still didn't know what these symbols meant, why the hell this thing appeared on one run, or why I was still getting such an awful feeling from these statues, or why one time when I booted up the game, I found myself in Void Court? Lascivious actions. What the? Oh god, they know! More frustrating still was, despite knowing Gray's backstory, I still hadn't learned anything about the Void, and even less about the mysterious and powerful beings that live here known as the Void Lords. I was getting more and more vexed with each run, and could feel there was massive parts of this game I just wasn't touching. Before long, that frustration tipped over into disillusionment, and eventually, I stopped playing Void Stranger. Only months later to receive a message. I hopped on a call and explained my frustration with the game, and was left with a clue. Pay attention to the shape of the rooms. The next day I booted up Void Stranger and passed through its first few floors without issue, taking note of the shapes of the rooms as I went, and... this floor is a perfect square. Why does that feel weird? Where else had I seen a 6x6 pattern? And holy shit, the carvings, those engravings at the start of each zone. Resetting my run once again, but this time I used my patented Eyepatch Wolves notebook, now available at eyepatchwolves.com, and jotted down the shape of the engraving, and then rearranged these 6x6 rooms tiles to match that shape. And when I did, a bizarre pattern filled the edges of the screen. And after so many weeks of frustration, it was kind of magical to see something new. With no other options, I dropped into the pit below. You find yourself in a new, unnumbered room. By opening the chest, you obtain an odd cube, and the text, you acquire a strange feeling. Your mind feels heavier. And that's it. No solution, no guidance, no staircase. You are just trapped once again, with no perceivable way forward. Think of how similar this moment is to when you first found the Void Rod, or that first puzzle that requires you to move the stairs. Under the rule set you currently understand, there is no way forward, meaning the solution now lies outside that understanding. And so, you once again flail, hoping to discover anything, and then eventually it'll happen. You'll poke at this rock and get this text. Knock that chest over there 6 times in a row, then wait 6 seconds, and the exit will reveal itself. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There is now a way forward. This is another one of those Void Stranger moments where it's difficult to appreciate how monumental it is when you first experience it. But what you've acquired is the Void Memory. And the Void Memory is like a Rosetta Stone for the world of Void Stranger, as it lets you hear the voices of the eggs dotted through Void Stranger's floors. What eggs, you ask? Why, these ones. Oh, did you think they were rocks? That's weird, considering they're very clearly the souls of people who have become trapped in the void and lost all hope, of whom you now have the ability to hear the echoes of despair. The information you receive from them blows this game wide open. In fact, the very first egg you encounter tells you that if you knock on the back of a chest 3 times and wait 3 seconds, you will get 3 locusts instead of 1. That's big, but it's only the beginning. Remember those mysterious smiling statues we mentioned? Well, another egg lesson tells you that if you open a hole in front of them and dive into it, the smiling statue will consume all your locusts, but in exchange, warp you forward that same number of floors. Meaning, if you do this with 12 locusts, you will warp forward 12 floors. That's fucking huge. And suddenly, making it to the bottom of the void unvoided starts to feel a lot more possible. However, even more so than a much greater supply of locusts and a new way in which to utilize them, what you've really discovered here is the purpose of the stone tablets and the knowledge of how to access the 6x6 rooms. You know from previous runs that each of the 8 zones contain an engraving and a 6x6 room, but now you know how they work, and that information becomes your guiding compass down the void, and before long, you'll hit a 6x6 room that utterly breaks this game. Up until this point, you have navigated all of Void Stranger's floors with a single mechanic: tile swapping. Each floor asking you to carefully measure your surrounding resources and strategically construct a path overcoming gaps and bypassing enemies. And there's a real mechanical purity to that. Now get that shit fucking out of here, because you have just discovered the Void Wings, which let you, and I'm going to pause for anticipation here, that feels like the right amount, hover over a single space. And it's fucking mind-blowing. I cannot oversell how this one single mechanical change utterly obliterates everything you understood about Void Stranger. Look at this floor, a floor that wingless requires careful consideration and manipulation of its tiles, requiring you to measure how many you need to cross the gap while also not trapping yourself in a dead end. Clear time, 88 seconds. The same floor winged? Nah, son, 6 seconds. That's fucking cheating, or at least that's how it feels. The experience of going from wingless to winged is genuinely one of the most freeing and empowering feelings I have ever gotten from a video game. Floors that gave you trouble before, now melting before you as so many more movement options become available. What? I'm on the UI. Wait, I can pick up the UI's icons. Wait, okay. Wait, I can pick up the tile denoting my locust count. Wait, I can pick up the tile denoting my floor number. Wait, does this mean I can swap those 2 values? Holy shit. Did I just give myself a near limitless supply of locusts? Wait a minute, what if I try the opposite? And take my 10 locusts and swap that into the floor value. Oh my god, I just teleported to floor 10. This means I can use menu manipulation to teleport to whatever floor I want. Oh, the freedom, the power. I am becoming not just a player in this world, but something else. It's God. A being who can see through the lines of code that bind this reality together and contort them to my will. Why, I bet I could take even the very floor icon itself, which will probably allow me to— oh my god. What? Where am I? What is that noise? Have I broken the game? What the hell is that? What are those sounds? What is happening? Oh god! Oh!
Hola mis amigos, mi nombre es Terry Cadabra, la maga que explica el juego y desafortunadamente la sección donde aparezco yo fue cortado de este video y sigo atrapado aquí en esta realidad de bosolio donde mi sabiduría de juego nunca será realmente conocida. Por favor, ayúdame.
Experiencing Void Stranger unfold outwards like this is incredible, but that feeling only grows in a later 6x6 room as you discover the Void Sword. And what does the Void Sword do? Oh, I don't know, only let you kill enemies! And holy shit, there's boss fights in this game! After close to a dozen hours, Void Stranger now introduces combat. This encounter contorting all of the game's mechanics into a goddamn incredible boss battle, requiring you to use the wings and or rod to build a bridge to the enemy while carefully monitoring your movement, which I guess in a weird way is also your turn count, because remember, time only moves forward when you do, meaning you are both geographically and chronologically trying to position yourself in a way to attack the boss, but also not get nuked by its giant laser beams, and it's thrilling, and even more so when you beat it and return to the regular dungeon and feel how the Void Sword now changes everything. If the Void Wings allowed you to gracefully pirouette past the challenges of the Void Sword allows you to rip right through them. Even with the wings, enemies are these things that need to be understood, manipulated, and maneuvered around. But now, throw that shit in the fucking garbage, because the Void Sword transforms them into trifling inconveniences to be erased with a single button press. And between this, the Void Wings, your ability to manipulate the amount of lives you have, as well as warp between floors, how you interact with this world dramatically transforms. Seriously, if your first run through Void Stranger felt like opening a series of doors with a slightly bent needle, a slow pocket watch, and a mildly damp tissue, you are now a cannonball, crashing through floor after floor. Puzzles that ground you to a halt before, now barely taking any thought at all. And that's even if you need to do them, with you sometimes skipping dozens of floors at once, all utterly trivializing the journey to the bottom of the void. But tantalizingly, it might not even be the bottom of the void that you're even thinking about, because now something else has started to happen. What all these individual discoveries compound into is a kind of incredible transformation in how you perceive Void Stranger. There's a specific kind of puzzle game that's become popular in the last decade. Games like Outer Wilds, The Witness, Tunic, or even this year's Blueprints. A genre some have dubbed Metroid Brainias, and while I am personally dedicating resources to having those people rounded up in a field and shot, categorizing them like this makes sense, because each involves specific isolated puzzles, the rewards for which are often information on the wider world and how it works, until eventually the player's understanding grows to the point that that entire world becomes the puzzle. That is what Void Stranger now is. A Metroid Brainia. I can't even say it. It's too awful. When you start Void Stranger, it is a linear journey through a succession of puzzles, but by now, your perspective has pulled right back and now become about how you manipulate and decipher the wider meta of that world. Now that you're able to read the eggs as well as access the game's secret zones, you'll start to pick up little fragments of lore as to who the Void Lords are and what this place is. This is the point in the game that everyone I know who's played it starts a Google Doc or Photoshop file or a notebook in an effort to combine their information and discover who the Void Lords are and what exactly happened to them. The gameplay now not becoming about any individual floor or tile combination, but your ability to collect those shards of narrative and combine them to deduce the mysteries of the Void and unravel the story of the Void Lords. Which is... First there was Lord Ad, blessed with the ability to create life, and who used that gift to bring the Void Lords into existence. Powerful chimeras built out of combining humans with other species, who ruled over the void and could change their appearance at will. The first of these lords was Lord Mon, but Mon was created through forbidden means, a calculating charlatan, manipulative and covetous. Ad was disgusted by Mon, and through the same forbidden means created Lord Gore. But worried that Gore would turn out as contemptuous as Mon, Ad overcorrected, and made Gore a being of apathy and indecisiveness. Lord Lev was the third Void Lord to be created from forbidden means, whose loyalty to the Void itself surpassed even Lord Ad's. Lord Lev was born without a mouth, and while they were grateful to Lord Av for granting the other Void Lords horns, which allowed them to communicate with Lev telepathically, Lev also secretly harbored malice towards Ad, for reasons that we do not know, but possibly for Ad's disgust at their sister Mon. From here, Ad created 4 other Void Lords through different means. Lord Eos, Ad's most beloved and trusted ally, who had the ability to take the forms of people's desires. The smiling Lord B, a creature of insatiable hunger but also cruelty, fierce in their devotion to Lord Ad. Then there was Lord Tan, the Raging, a being of terrifying power so frightening that they were shunned by the other Void Lords. And finally, Lord Cyph, a mysterious lord of whom we know very little. Long before we entered the halls of the Void, a great war erupted between the Void Lords, when Lord Eos, whom Lord Ad trusted the most, turned on Ad by committing an unspeakable sin. The lowly Mon sided with their sister Eos, resentful of the disgust their creator had shown them, only to be later killed by their sister, Lord Lev. Lev so overcome with grief over slaying their sibling that they took their own life. Lord Tan the Rageful, though siding with Lord Ad, went on a rampage so destructive and unstoppable that their fury could not be quelled even after the battle had ended. Lord Ad forced to kill Tan by running them through with the Void Sword, with finally Lord Eos defeated by the other Void Lords and their body devoured by Ad, leaving only a single trace remain that would eventually grow into tail. Despite not siding with either Ad or Eos, Lord Gore was beheaded by Ad for their indecisiveness, their head left to ponder their betrayal for all eternity, and their body cast down beyond the limits of the Void where no creature was ever meant to tread. This left only Ad, B, and Cyph, till one day, Lord Ad, creator of the Void Lords, vanished, now leaving only the insatiable B and the mysterious Cyph. This is about as much as you can understand about the Void Lords as you approach the game's final floors. With the sword, the wings, and your ability to manipulate both your locus count and the floor number, getting here unvoided is no challenge at all. And after journeying past a zone filled entirely with strange symbols, and even an engraving that contains no brand at all, meaning that it's impossible to enter in the 6x6 room that follows, we find one last tree room and are presented with a final memory. It turns out Johan pulled a Griffith, god damn it, and made a contract with demonic entities to sacrifice the souls of Lily's kingdom for unlimited power. Those demonic entities being the remaining Void Lords Cyph and B, as well as a mysterious being called the Judge, who seems to be in communication with an even higher power called Dis. When Grey tries to save Lily, B takes on her true, mind-meltingly horrifying form and defeats Grey. But before Grey can be killed, Lily offers herself as a sacrifice in place of Grey and her kingdom. A sacrifice that for some reason is approved by Dis. I know the reason, but I ain't saying it. Lily is taken to the heart of the Void, and Grey, left with nothing but the necklace she gave Lily for her wedding, is told that if she wishes to get her princess back, she will need to come to the Void where her devotion will be tested. Which, after Grey knocks Johan the fuck out, begins the very journey we witnessed in that opening cutscene. A journey that you are now at the end of. Upon finally reaching the end of the Void, Grey is told that she can bring a single soul back from it. Only, there's a problem. Lily was pregnant, and within her there is now a second soul, and Grey can only save one. But in order to do so, she must agree never to come to the Void again. Before she can say anything, Grey is blasted out of the Void and awakens in a place with power lines, street lamps, and skyscrapers. She awakens in our time, and in her hands, a tiny fetal creature. The credits roll, and when they're done, you're left with no option but to close the game, safe in the knowledge that you have now experienced the true ending of Void Stranger. You have not experienced the true ending of Void Stranger. You are still a baby and know nothing. Upon booting up the game again, you are presented with a brand new cutscene and a new character. This is Lily, with an IE as opposed to a Y, and she is Void Stranger's second playable character and the protagonist of its second route. Also, I'm gonna refer to Princess Lily as Lilith from now on to avoid confusion, and the girl we just talked about as Lily. Okay, I hope you're enjoying the video. After discovering something in her mother's documents, Lily is pulled into the void, and initially, braving it once again doesn't seem like much of a challenge because now, from the opening menu, you can give yourself the Void Memory, Void Wings, and Void Sword. And not just that, you can even grant yourself infinite locusts, all of which, in theory, make your journey down the void a mere formality. But then, wait, was there an enemy in this room before? Oh god. Whereas in the first route, puzzles were designed to be completed without items, which is why the Void Sword and Void Wings utterly broke those puzzles, now puzzles have received a fiendish upgrade, specifically designed and contorted around your new abilities, meaning they are now far more complex and dramatically more difficult. Even at their most challenging, the puzzles you encounter on Grey's route usually have one concept that needed to be understood, and when you did understand it, you could find yourself cannonballing through 4 or 5 rooms in quick succession. In a way that was exhilarating, downright breezy even. Lily's route is not like that. Lily's puzzles ask you to bend, contort your understanding of multiple mechanics and principles on each floor, slamming into barrier after barrier, and it is exhausting. So many times I had to walk away from a puzzle in frustration so I could calm down and reapproach it with a fresh perspective. And even then, those puzzles could take 20, even 30 minutes across dozens of attempts, and suddenly all that freedom, all that power you felt is gone, and the anxiety of, can I actually do this, comes flooding back. However, just as an immortal gorilla flinging feces at a wall will one day paint the Mona Lisa, you, given enough time, will succeed. And besides, you have infinite lives. You can do this. All it's going to take is enough time and patience. And wait, what's the four-eyed statue doing? Only a simple memory will remain. What does that mean? Wait, what the fuck? What the fuck? Floor fucking 1? Are you serious? Welcome to the nightmare of the four-eyed statues. You see, what these bastard things actually do is if they are positioned above an open staircase and you enter said staircase, they will send you hurtling back to the beginning of the game. But the solution is simple, right? Just don't do that. Oh, my poor sweet child, allow me to reveal to you the full malice of Void Stranger. Remember everything we said about Void Stranger being mentally draining? Well, Lily's route is like that times 10, trapping you in grueling puzzles that grind you down and wear you out until you crave the relief of an open staircase, something you've been conditioned to want over hundreds of floors now. And in that excitement, you have just erased the last 4 hours of progress. You will think that you are immune to this and that you have learned your lesson, and then it will happen again. And it hurts, not just the lost progress, but the knowledge that it was preventable. It was your fault. You promise, nay, vow to yourself that next time will be different. You'll be more vigilant, more careful, you'll move slower, and you will. Until an especially fiendish puzzle results in a split second of moronic, absent-minded stairs enthusiasm, sending you crashing back to floor 1 again. Rage, disappointment, questions, Why? Why is Void Stranger like this? The communication between you and the game that was once so gentle, so encouraging, replaced by a single seething whisper. Give up.
Even with exploits and power-ups and floor skips, it takes a particular kind of lunatic to make it to the end of Lily's run. And it brings us to a question I feel like we've kind of been tiptoeing around this entire video. Should you go through Void Stranger by yourself without guides or help? And that answer is complicated. Part of the core experience of Void Stranger is sitting with the anxiety of not knowing how to move forward until a new perspective unlocks within you. And so, using a guide too early is going to rob you of that feeling for the same reason tutorial text would have ruined that first puzzle. However, I think a lot of people are going to hit a point where a particularly difficult puzzle or lack of a clear path forward tips their curiosity for this game over into frustration. I definitely hit that point with Void Stranger, but I'm so fucking glad I kept going. And what kept me going was talking to them about their experiences and hearing about the things they'd uncovered, as well as the odd, vague directional finger point, and in turn exchanging what I had found with them. And I know there's going to be people who disagree with that, who see it as sacrilege to experience Void Stranger in anything other than isolation. And what I'd say to that is, one, System Erasure actually encourage people to talk to other people when they get stuck directly on their Steam page. But two, let's take a step back here and think about what this is. Like, what are we doing here? What is the purpose of this video? And it's simple. It's to bring Void Stranger to a larger audience, to give System Erasure the exposure and hopefully sales they need to create whatever's next, to a quality they want in a way that is sustainable for a human life. Something that is becoming harder and harder to do within the games industry. Despite the fact that games have never been more profitable, the games industry is fucked in about 8 different ways. And one of them is how difficult it is for games even as amazing as Void Stranger to get the attention they need to in an ocean of other games. Void Stranger is different and weird and innovative, but in a way that you can't look at a screenshot of Void Stranger and know anything about what it is. You can't even spend 20 minutes with this game and have a single clue about what's special about it or what it's doing. And in a perfect reality, everyone would have the time and patience to discover that, but they don't. People have lives and jobs and families and responsibilities. And so games like this need Sherpas. And I'm not just talking about people like me. If you clicked on this video, it's likely because you, on some level, care about weird video games. And so you should care about bringing those games to different kinds of people. I can't think of a single better way to experience Void Stranger than you to collect a group of friends who have never played this game and all dive in together, trading techniques and exchanging secrets. And you are still at the point of this video where you know little enough to do that. Because believe it or not, you still know so very, very little about this game. Oh, also, here's a list of other content creators who cover weirder, smaller games, and I think do a really good job doing so. Feel free to support them. And also me, I have Patreon. It's $1. And I just put up a 4-hour video about my top 100 video games of all time, which you can watch if you want. Okay, thank you.
Drag yourself through Lily's route and you'll experience her story. Lily, as you've probably put together, is Princess Lily's daughter and the baby in Gray's hands at the end of her run, with each of Lily's tree room flashbacks taking you through her memories of childhood and the bond she shares with Gray, her adoptive mother. You watch them find a home together, go trick-or-treating and go to prom, and it's sweet, a far more tender and grounded story than Gray's run. Like her mom, Lily is rebellious and spirited, often getting into fights with other kids. But you can tell Gray loves this about Lily, Lily being the closest Gray will ever come to being reunited with the person she's lost. But this becomes a problem. On some level, Grey is unable to let go of the hope that Lily will become her mother. Remember, she even gave them the same name. But as Lily grows up and starts to become her own person, cracks start to form between the two, until one day Lily comes home with her hair cut short for the first time in her entire life, no longer resembling Lilith, and it results in such a massive fight between the two that Grey, overcome with emotion, slaps Lily, causing Lily to storm out of their home, never to return. I think two of the most painful things you can go through in any relationship is either holding on to the hope that someone is going to become a person they never will, or the opposite, having that expectation placed on you. We see both sides of that here. As Grey, you've seen everything she's been through to get Lily back, and know how crushing it was when that never happened. But as Lily, you understand her desire to be her own person and establish her own identity. And it's messy and complicated in a way relationships often are, and particularly when years later, Grey passes away without the two ever having seen each other again. The final section of Lily's run is just this beautiful sequence where, with the Void Rod, you must rebuild Lily's memories of Grey. The friction of these puzzles capturing Lily's struggle to reconcile her relationship with her mother, and ultimately make peace with those memories so that she can finally let them go. From here, Lily is saved from the void by something and now free to live her life as she wanted. And that is the true ending of Void Stranger. I mean, clearly that was not the actual true ending. I mean, who's gonna believe that? You now begin Void Stranger's third route, this time playing as a Void Lord, the mysterious Cyph. During Lily's ending, Cyph's sister B was vanished by an unknown being, and so now, as Cyph, you must once again descend the void in search of B. But this time, the void has reverted back to its original easier state we played in Grey's run. And considering Cyph is always voided from the beginning and has all items by default, this run once again seems trivial, and in the beginning, it is. All you really need to do is make it to the end of Cyph's run and be on the lookout for something that seems unusual, which will lead you to a new secret area of the void and some of the most bastard difficult puzzles of the entire game, at the end of which we will discover the charlatan Mon, one of the traitorous Void Lords, is still alive and up to something. Another goddamn ingeniously designed boss fight where you have to attack Mon's tail while avoiding his laser beams. Trust me, it's fucking cool. You kill Mon and reunite with B in an extremely fun, feel-good ending that dumps you back to the main menu with no clear path forward. God damn it, this fucking game. I knew this couldn't be the game's true ending. It just didn't feel like it, and there was too many unanswered questions, and I was right. But what I was wrong about was what the game was now asking me to do. When we first started this game, the first thing we had to do was build a bridge, and from there, the game gradually built on that understanding, introducing concepts and techniques around tile manipulation and navigating enemies, to the point that you start to assume this is a linear game about solving puzzles one by one. However, this is just the first layer of Void Stranger, and in order to access the second, you need to struggle with the frustration of the void ending and see beyond what you assumed this game to be, which means pulling your perspective of the game right back, realizing that you can move through its floors with a much greater degree of freedom than you ever thought possible, obtaining the Void Memory, Void Wings, and Void Sword, as well as learning the Locust Jumps and UI manipulation, and in doing so, broadening your perspective of this world even further, as now the puzzle becomes not any individual floor, but the entire void itself, as well as the story of the Void Lords. Well, now we need to do that perspective pull one more time, pulling back our perspective to understand that the real puzzle is not just the void, but the entire game, encompassing all 3 routes and what we've learned on each. The first piece of this involves recognizing an inconsistency in the void we have likely walked past dozens of times at this point. Remember earlier when we said, "Why does the game seem to occasionally skip a numbered floor?" The floor I was referring to is floor 223, the staircase on 222 leading you directly to 224. But even if you recognize this at the time, floor 223 was still completely inaccessible, but now we know multiple ways on how to access it, like using the smiling statue on floor 186 to locust jump forward 37 floors, landing directly on 223, which gives us access to Cyph's 6x6 room, where you are given one final clue. Destroy what remains of the traders and return to 000. Okay, let's take that second part first. Because the floor counter on our UI only has 3 digits, we can determine that 000 refers to floor 0. The problem being that we start this game on floor 1, meaning there is no way to access floor 000. Or at least there wouldn't be without UI manipulation, meaning we can now swap the value of 00 from our locust count with that of the floor number, warping us to floor 000, at which point your path will be blocked by 3 giant statues showing a snake, a centipede, and whatever the fuck this is. Which brings us to the first part of that clue. Destroy what remains of the 3 traitorous lords. It's here where everything we learnt about Void Stranger's lore becomes an actual mechanical solution, because from that lore, we know the 3 traitorous lords are Mon, Gore, and Eos. We killed Mon at the end of Cyph's run, and Gore's head can be found on floor 143, begging for death if you have the Void Sword, but Eos is a little more tricky. We know what remains of Eos refers to Tail, a snake-like being that can shapeshift into people's different desires, which we know is actually the anime snake boob lady from floor 30, a being that appears differently to both Lily and Grey, who you can kill using a combination of both the wings and the sword. Killing all 3 will dissolve this statue, and in doing so, give you access to Lord Ad's final treasure, the upgraded Void Rod, which allows you to smash through a final limit you felt since minute 1 of this game. You can now pick up infinite tiles as opposed to just 1. I know that doesn't sound like a big deal. Trust me, it is. This once again breaks the game, and the sensation of overwhelming power and freedom and just bending the void to your will comes back and stronger than ever, as you can now turn any floor in Void Stranger into basically whatever you want. But aside from the feeling of making the void utterly quiver around you, how does this help you move forward? Well, remember way back in Grey's true ending, where we came across that empty engraving which was utterly impossible to replicate on the 6x6 room that follows? Well, guess what? With our new upgraded Void Rod, we can now erase every tile in that final 6x6 room, entering the domain of Dis. At this point, we don't really know who Dis is, but we've heard tale of them whispered, and all we can tell is that it's an incredibly powerful being. 60 hours into Void Stranger, it now felt like the game's real, final, true ending was approaching, and it was hard not to feel a magnitude in that, as this massive gateway loomed before me. I thought of all the milestones that had brought me here, like the first moment of building the bridge and how satisfying that it felt at the time and how utterly minuscule it felt in retrospect. I thought of obtaining the Void Memory and not even realizing the profound way that it would transform my interactions with the game, or the shock of the increased maneuverability brought on by the Void Wings, or the disbelief at the capacity to slay enemies that was granted with the Void Sword, and how each one of them had dramatically changed my understanding of this game and how I interacted with it. And so, when in the next room, Void Stranger required me to go down into the interface and give those items back, I was in awe. It was like the game was asking me to acknowledge the journey I'd been on, to consider how far I'd come, how I'd grown. And there was a real emotion in that. The knowledge that my journey was finally coming to an end. And so with trepidation, with slow, cautious steps, I descended down the stairs into oh god fucking damn it! Fucking piece of shit! Four-eyed statues! Fucking back at the bitch beginning of this stupid fucking game! I will spare you the agony of the zone that follows, but suffice to say, you will encounter the most fiendishly brutal puzzles in the entire game, especially this one. Fuck this one. And after defeating B in another ingeniously designed boss encounter, you may feel that now, truly, the game has no surprises left to show you. And once again, you could not be more wrong. You encounter Cyph in her true, unrestrained form. And at this point, Cyph does the most shocking thing they could possibly do. They undo the core principle of this reality that has governed your movements since your very earliest moments in the game. The concept that time moves when you do. Cyph does not obey this rule. Cyph moves on their own time, and I think it's fucking incredible that this is how 99% of bosses in video games work, but in this specific scenario, it feels like this reality obliterating occurrence, because the game has spent dozens of hours conditioning you into believing that this is how time flows in Void Stranger. And so now, when Cyph moves by herself, it feels like you are encountering a being so great and terrible that the core principles that govern this reality do not apply to them. And I'm not sure a game has ever so effectively communicated to me that you are now facing something beyond perceivable reality. The extreme difficulty of this fight only adds to that feeling, the goal being to pick up the stage tiles and use them to hit Cyph with, but what that means is that the more damage you cause Cyph, the smaller the platform you're standing on becomes, leaving you barely any room to maneuver around the constant onslaught of bullet hellscapes Cyph launches at you. With patterns that spin together and overlap, trapping you in the cruelest, most crushing scenarios. A single glancing blow from any of these projectiles sending you crashing back to the beginning of the fight. I am not joking when I say I fought this boss for nearly 4 or 5 hours on stream, dying hundreds of times until I finally realized that Void Stranger's not a bullet hell. It's a puzzle game. Okay, wait a minute. So they can't attack when they're generating a memory. Are you fucking serious? You just had to hit this little dude. My own assumptions had fucked me once again. Then revelations. Lord Ad, the first of the Void Lords, reveals themselves not as a secret boss, but as Grey, as the person you've spent most of the game playing as. Which the game actually told you in the very first puzzle, because the statue of Ad is wearing Grey's necklace. I swear to God, it feels like the game never stops fucking with you. It is revealed that Ad left the Void and sacrificed a portion of their memories, and now, as Grey, has returned to save Lilith, causing Lord Lev to reveal herself as the entity you first encountered at the game over screen. This is the pathetic damaged state Lev was left in after the Void War, and so has been manipulating humans to collect locusts and souls to assist in her resurrection, and now seeks to take control of the Void / the being known as Dis by taking Ad's memories. And that's when it happens. Remember everything I said about the game breaking its own reality? Well, toss that shit out the fucking window, because now Void Stranger becomes a scrolling bullet hell as you soar past galaxies towards the final battle with Lev. And it's fucking mind-blowing. You start this game feeling clever for building a little tile bridge, and you are now soaring past solar systems, slicing planet-sized spaceships in half in a showdown showdown with a godlike being that spans cosmos before finally Lilith and Grey are reunited. And Jesus fucking okay, this is it. This is the game's true ending. Kind of.
I am now left with the impossible task of explaining what Void Stranger is. So, here's my best attempt. Tens of thousands of years ago, the Void Star plummeted to Earth, a mysterious object of incredible reality warping power. And in order to contain and control that power, humanity built Dis. And Dis is not a person, but a massive artificial intelligence which drew on the power of the Void Star to give itself shape and structure, creating the Void, a reality warping space that exists across multiple timelines and realities, all at once physical and digital and ethereal. A facility that is maintained by the Void Lords, the first of which was Lord Ad, who used the power of the Void to create powerful artificial humans to help them maintain it, which they did by combining people with different animals and insects, before a schism in the Void Lords led to the Void War, and eventually the disappearance of Ad, who now, rather than creating artificial humans, merely wanted to live as one of them, sacrificing their memories and becoming Grey, coming to love Princess Lily, desiring nothing but the simple joy of their lives together, which eventually brings her back into contact with the Void Lords through Johann, and into the world she created, inadvertently revealing Lev's plans for resurrection. This is the most basic terms I can use to explain what happens in Void Stranger, and while some of it's probably wrong, I think a decent amount is right. Okay, now that we know what happens, we can finally ask, what does any of it mean?
Asking what any piece of art means is complicated because different pieces of it are going to resonate with different people in different ways, depending on their own values, experiences, and history. And when approaching a story as massive and complicated as Void Stranger, that question becomes even more complicated. But as for what it means to me, well, remember that creeping abomination at the start of the video? This resides in an area that you can only access by using floor warps to go beyond Void Stranger's final floors. And what it actually is, well, let's talk about Lord Gore. Gore is a kind of tragic figure in Void Stranger, the indecisive lord who chose not to take a side in the Void War and was beheaded because of it, their body now cast down into the deepest depths beyond the void. While Gore's head can be found in the void itself, begging for death, their body is actually this creature. Something we can tell by the fact that it repeats the line, "How bothersome when it touches us," the only other place we've seen that dialogue being Gore themselves. Their body now endlessly searching the space beyond the void for any sign of life, desperate to find its head and once again become whole. The idea of becoming whole, of reuniting with some lost part of yourself, is a theme across multiple characters in Void Stranger. Lev, Lily, even Grey is missing a part of herself that she's not even aware of at the start of the game. And it's brutal in a way that you can't even really understand when you first play this game and experience the Void ending. Experience the despair of holding on to hope as every other part of you disappears. But you keep going. Each challenge, each wall, each limitation you impose on yourself, and the constant anxiety of not knowing what the solution is, or if you'll be able to find a way forward, you overcome it all by constantly reevaluating your perception of what this world is and how you consider your own place within it. And it's a struggle. It is agony, full of frustration and lost progress, but you keep going. No matter how impossible any obstacle or scenario feels, there is always a way. There is always something you can do, and the first step is removing the assumption that there are limits where there is none. Because ultimately, the one constant in any scenario, no matter how grim or hopeless, is you. Is your capacity to broaden your understanding of the world around you, and in doing so, becoming a more complete version of yourself.
This to me is what Void Stranger is, but it's not all it is, because believe it or not, there is still so much more, including the most fucking insane twist of this entire game, which I am not going to spoil here, because if I still haven't got you, I want to leave it as a final morsel to tempt you into Void Stranger. But it's also more than that. There's still so many mysteries in Void Stranger that even the community around it are putting together as we speak. The wiki is still full of blank pages, even for important characters. In so many ways, this game is this unexplored abyss, this mysterious frontier, but a frontier that you can be a part of. Even after watching this video, you're still gonna be going in with so many unanswered questions, like the true origin of the Void Lords, or what Dis's true purpose is, or why Lily seems so important to the Void Lords. But here's the thing. Those answers exist, just not in Void Stranger. The final crazy part of this game being that it is an abyss so deep it goes beyond itself. And what I mean by that is that this video was never a recommendation for Void Stranger. It was a recommendation for System Erasure's previous game, Zero Ranger.
Zero Ranger is a meticulously carved bullet hell shmup that just so happens to share a universe with Void Stranger, the two stories overlapping and completing each other in ways that are mind-bendingly ludicrous, forming this goddamn incredible story of a love that transcends multiple planes of space-time and reality. And if you've watched this far in this video, you now know quite a lot about Void Stranger, but nothing of Zero Ranger, and that is by design. If you want the experience I have been describing this entire video, go play Zero Ranger. I do not care if you think you don't enjoy shoot-em-ups, Zero Ranger will correct that assumption. Just keep believing in your ability to move forward, no matter what. Unravel its mysteries, and then, with that information, move forward into Void Stranger and experience its actual true story. That is my gift to you. Hello friends, thank you for watching the video. Good Jesus, this one nearly killed me. And if you enjoyed it, you can support this channel by pre-ordering my new book about fake video games. The pre-orders will be live for, well, a little while at least. You can also head on over to eyepatchwolves.com to pick up the brand new frog tee, or join my Patreon at patreon.com/super eyepatchwolf, where you can be joined by these fine folk: Ricta Mouse, Alice Trinity Ripley, Oswaldo Vargas, Drowning Curious, Lily Marion, Wizard of Loneliness, and Floorfrog94. Find me as ever at Eyepatchwolf on all these places, on the Versus Wolves podcast, and on the Jeff's Bizarre Adventure anime podcast. Friends, take care of yourselves. I'll see you next time.